What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Unfiltered Information Podcast. Doing a live stream, but I'm also doing a podcast as we do this. I'm gonna have Freedom Factions join me in this one, so look forward to it. He'll request to join any moment now, hopefully. So yeah, just gonna talk about a few topics. What's up, brother? How you doing?
A little bit of everything, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's nice to have you on, man. Very nice.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Was there a specific alias you wanted me to go by, or what do you call
Whatever
you by?
works. Whatever works for you. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Uh, you're welcome to call me EJ.
EJ, sure,
Uh,
that works.
should I call you Unfiltered?
You can
Share
call me
my
Josh.
info.
You can call me Josh.
Josh.
Yeah,
Okay. Nice to meet you, Josh.
you as well.
Yeah, man. I will let you. Just fire away.
Fair
Whenever
enough.
you have questions, just throw them at me.
All right, sweet. We'll just get right to it then. What was your motivation for starting this page, and like, what motivated you to kind of start this whole journey of spreading the truth and information amongst followers?
If you want the truth, bro, and I talk about it all the time on the podcast. I remember sitting like in a smoke-filled studio with other people that wanted to be like hip hop artists and rappers and things like that. And I don't know like what came over me, but I kind of asked the question like, hey, what are we doing this for? Like, why did we want to become rappers? Why did we want to be hip hop people? And I remember them like all looking at me like, oh, EJ, you're crazy. You're crazy. You need to hit this bowl, take this shot,
Yeah.
stop asking questions about family stuff. What's wrong with you? Write your tracks. And so I remember because I brought my girlfriend with me one day, and we left that studio, and I was like, I don't think I can go back to doing this. And so you can still find some of my songs where I'm saying instead of the gold, I want the scrolls to open up your soul. So to answer your
Hmm.
question, like in a similar way or in a simple way, I got tired of the prescribed culture, and I got tired of what they told us to do and what they thought of as fun. I think everybody kind of has that moment where they fall in love with learning, and they're able to understand like themselves deeper. But coming into this, you don't. I definitely did not expect to be like where I'm at today.
Yeah,
And I
you're
tell
huge
people all
now.
the
You're one
time,
of the biggest on Instagram.
dude, it trips me out. It's a massive responsibility. I'm a paranormal person. I love looking at supernatural stories and hearing about strange things that people have like encountered. That's another thing of how I fell into this. There's so many different factors. It's kind of hard for me to like pinpoint one, but it's just a concoction of events that took place that kind of led me here, man. Because my God, um, I wish I could explain it a lot simpler. You know, the other day I had a buddy of mine call me. He's like one of my childhood friends. I used to do parkour and martial arts with him, and he's in Seattle now, and I'm out here in New Mexico. And one of the day, he caught me doing like an Instagram live one of these days, and I was talking about the story of Moses. I'll get into that here shortly,
Okay.
but I was talking about the story of Moses, and my buddy chimes in and he's like, whenever you get done doing this, give me a call. I want to talk to you about how I gave my life to God. And it's so strange because I hadn't talked to this dude for probably the 4 or 5 years. And we basically like rekindled the friendship, not necessarily like on Christianity, but being aware of so much overt evil out there that we kind of had to choose like God, Christianity, and the light, being involved in all the things that we were doing. And so he tells me his story of how he basically overcame um, not only depression, oppression, spiritual oppression, which is a very real thing as well, uh, but hurt and finding and being lost. And so I think what I'm trying to say is like I found so many other people along this journey um, that have taken this path, not necessarily by choice, but out of necessity, because a lot of people can't live a lie, and truthful people kind of accept that, embrace it, and go through it. That's why you're kind of hearing me jump all over the place from from rap stuff to paranormal stuff to uh, to God and Christianity, because there's been so many different factors that have helped like
Get you to where you
paint the
are.
picture precisely,
Yeah.
man.
Now, let me ask you this. I'm gonna follow up on the rap comment. You talk about the rap subject. Did it ever come to your mind that, hey, maybe I should keep rapping but talk about real life events? Because not many people do that. Like, Mortal Technique, for instance, he'll do that. I don't know if you've heard of Mortal Technique. He's probably the most
Oh
well
yeah,
known for talking about, like, what's going on in the world, conspiracies, being a good person, stuff like that. So did that ever cross your mind?
bro. On Immortal Technique, if he's listening and if he's not listening, he used to follow us. I think somebody a couple years ago got in his ear and he blocked us. Me and Immortal Technique had like a correspondence for a bit there. But I think once Trump got in office and some of the crazier conspiracies came out, we didn't vibe and he blocked me. But as far as answering your question, jumping back to hip hop and music and stuff, heck yeah, man. There's always times where I have like hip hop instrumentals or just like lo-fi music bumping in the background, and I'm just kicking flows. But it's not anything like serious. Like I'm not doing shows. I'm not doing any events. I'm definitely not recording, even though I have like all of the equipment. Um, and I'm actually very glad you asked that question, because to touch on kind of the evolution as to where I've come from versus where I'm at. Again, I cannot state enough that this is not where I thought I would end up, but a lot of the skills that I've acquired doing this type of work have helped transform my thought process, as well as my ability to put out quality content and impact like my community. And so I've thought about doing music and hip hop. There's people around here, where I've done music videos and stuff with them. But I think because of how like rapid fire everything is with the format we have, trying to set aside time to cut an album, bro, it would be super fun. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
but
Very time
I, I,
consuming.
yeah, very time consuming. I'm not sure if I could do it justice. So thank you for asking. You're definitely making me like reminisce a little bit.
Gotcha, for sure, for sure. Me and a buddy of mine, I'm not gonna promote it because I don't like self promoting. But me and my buddy, we made a rap album about 3 or 4 months ago. It's like 12, 13 songs, and we didn't talk about like drugs, money. We just kind of rapped, you know what I mean? And it just felt good to put something out like that. It's very enjoyable.
Well, that's what's needed, bro. I feel like that's kind of why I left like hip hop, is because it didn't have that conscious feel. Like it didn't have that like we got like J. Cole, and you got like some people that kind of come out and kind of sound conscious, but you don't have people who are like have you listened to Daylight? Some of his
Daylight,
songs
yeah, he's got the
sometimes are,
face tattoo, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Some of Daylight songs are just like mind blowing. He'll tell you about chemtrails, he'll tell you about reptilians and all this other stuff, but you don't have like, again, like somebody like Immortal Technique, somebody like J. Cole, somebody like, that's like a combination of all of them that stays truthful and exposes the culture and how it's designed to make us kill each other, to
Yep.
denigrate like the females, man, and ultimately dehumanize ourselves. I remember doing like an episode with Rizza Islam, because he's another black man. I'm a black man myself, and we talked about that synthetic culture that black people had to inherit. The guns, the drugs, the violence, all this bullcrap, this stuff that was put inside of the black community. Right now, we're just now beginning to wake up from this malaise, from this haze, and beginning to ask ourselves, what does community actually look like? Yeah, rap is one thing, so is trap. I feel like everybody has the same feelings with Takashi 69. He's a rat, he needs to die. But this is the culture that they're trying to have people inherit. We have an opportunity to create a conscious culture that's based not only on awareness but renaissance, and that's what we have to point out. Not the one that's designed to rob us of our humanity, but one that can uplift and empower us. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure. I've always thought that, in some sort of way, maybe it was a CIA operation or some sort of operation by some sort of government
Oh
agency to
yeah.
kind of disrupt the black community in some sort of way. Because
Oh yeah.
if you're just drilling into the minds of young black youth specifically, drugs, violence, guns, bitches, all this money, what's that going to do to their moral state? You know what I mean? They're not going to worry about finding God. They're not going to worry about, doing
Precisely.
things that actually matter to them.
Precisely. I had this same conversation like with an exclusive member last week. It's the popularization, the normalization of the thug culture, right? That's kind of what we're seeing out here with all these protests and all this rioting. They're trying to normalize the thug culture, where you break the social contract. You don't really care what people are doing. You don't show respect. It's all about me, 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 self gratification. They're trying to glorify that thug culture, and so that's a whole that is a whole that is a whole separate episode in and of itself, man. Because you have people who are still tied to that, and just to kind of make it like a connection with the political stuff, I was talking about this the other day. You have the whole Trump condemning white supremacy, Joe Biden not condemning Antifa, and then
Yep.
you've got unfortunately people within like the Black brown community saying, "Well, hell yeah, Bloods, Crips, Latino Kings, like let's click up." This is a very dangerous mindset because we're engaging in tribalism, and the thing about tribalism is you associate with what's familiar instead of having to fight through and associate and align with ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I thought that, speaking of the Joe Biden not condemning Antifa, I thought it was kind of on Chris Wallace's part a little awkward that not awkward, but a little weird that he only asked Trump to condemn white supremacy, which I agree with. He should. That is a terrorist organization in itself, no question about it. But if you look at Antifa, for instance, I'm not going to say Black Lives Matter because I don't support the group. I support the cause. Just because I don't support
Right.
Marxism, that's just me. I'm not going to spread that to other people. But
Right.
for Antifa specifically, I don't know why Chris Wallace didn't press him on condemning them as a terrorist cell, a domestic terrorist cell, or something along the lines.
It's because, bro, Nigel Farage, former leader of the UKIP of the Brexit Party, he talked about it just the other day that they are beholden to the radical left's agenda. And I understand that. Like, for people like ourselves, we're understanding the left-right paradigm. We get that. But the problem is, and I talked about this just the other week, we're seeing like the Overton window is changing. That's why you're seeing extremism on the left and extremism on the right. And so whenever we see like that shift taking place, we don't necessarily have like the vocabulary to explain why this is bad versus this is bad. In some passionate and heated debates with some people, I've actually stood up for Antifa simply because to a degree they represent what First Amendments should be used for.
I
You should
agree.
be
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to go out there and organize yourself. But the problem is a lot of these protests end up turning riots, and then from the riots they become like domestic terrorist events. And so that's the problem whenever we're jumping to extremes instead of understanding how it's shifting.
A lot of people commented George Soros and Black Lives Matter. That's another reason I'm not a fan of them too. I don't mean to just like come from what you're saying. I understand what you're
No, no,
saying.
no.
I just
Oh no, bro, you're fine.
I
For
saw
the
like
past
4
three
people
weeks,
commented.
oh no, bro, you're fine. For the past 3 weeks, I've been like, because 2 weeks ago we found out that Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrice Cullors practices witchcraft. The week after that, we found out that the other co-founder, Alicia Garza, is a part of a Black Futures Lab, the
Oh, I didn't know that.
pro-communist Chinese organization that's helping fund Black Lives Matter and also give money to the Democratic Party. And then this week, we found out that what Chinese state-backed media is showing support for Black Lives Matter. So check me. So hear me out real quick. We're being told that a Hungarian-born Jew and a communist organization understands my plight as a black man. You're telling me that 2 foreign organizations are masquerading as a pro-American black organization. They understand my plight. They understand my childhood. And so that's the problem. Is whenever you actually hit people with the facts, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And so for the past 3 weeks, I've just been drilling into them, making sure we get our facts straight, dotting our I's and crossing our T's, because, and this is the sad part, on the other side of having the facts, the bombs are already been exploded. It doesn't matter whether or not we hit people with the facts. I was talking about this just the other week. Even when they take down Antifa, Black Lives Matter, Indivisible, Refuse Fascism, the Boogaloo Boys, whoever they may be, it's still the ideology that will remain. There is no actual organizational head in which they can take down. Ideas are bulletproof, and so they will still replicate in different forms. And so that's the problem. So while we can hit them with the facts, show them how it comes from like an anti-American organizational place, they don't care. The damage has already been done. It's still going to cause all the problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So where do you see this going from now then for the organizations like Black Lives Matter and Antifa, for instance? What do you see them doing next?
September 17th, they started their 50-day siege of the White House. We haven't really heard anything from that. Some people are saying that it's a bust. Just right now, we heard that Trump has coronavirus, so he's on lockdown.
Yeah.
I think what's happening with both of these with all of this stuff is they're meant to add intensity and escalation. I don't want to say they're backdrop because a lot of the things that they do actually have repercussions, but it's going to escalate. They're going to start doing more stuff to try to either terrorize people to not vote, hold people hostage so that they can, and I don't mean that like literally. I mean like politically, emotionally, psychologically, and things like that. Hold people hostage so they feel terrorized to do the opposite. Um, I'll put it to you this way: I've been called a white supremacist. My views are considered white supremacy. So that's bullcrap. The thing is I'm speaking at another angle that people can't comprehend and that isn't there. We're talking about a narrative that's not being popularized or put out there. I'm speaking for every other black man that doesn't want to go with the Black Lives Matter Democratic agenda, but doesn't know that's out there. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
when we're talking about Antifa and BLM, you have to look at how they're being wound up on purpose. They're being gaslit. They're being funded. They're being allowed to carry out these acts for what? For what purpose? General destabilization, civil unrest, and chaos. Again, to hold people politically hostage so that they don't vote for a solution. And so that's also why, when it comes to talking about the left-right paradigm, it's very difficult because you don't want to advocate voting, but at the same time, you want to be able to explain the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution. So that's why all of this stuff is so sophisticated. Um, and as we get closer to the election, I thoroughly believe that we'll see more riots, we'll see more shootings, we'll see more destabilizing events because they don't want to have an election. I covered it a couple weeks ago. The Transition Integrity Project, another thing funded by George Soros, where they ran 4 different simulations on what would happen on election night if Trump were to win, if Joe Biden were to win, the Electoral College, all this other nonsense. They're trying to figure out how to make it make the results and the scenarios so muddied that you have essentially a splintering of society.
Divide and
I'm
conquer.
not sure. Yeah, precisely. Again, and it's just so crazy. Like I feel like it's crazy that all this information's out there. A couple of weeks ago, I did a show with David Nino Rodriguez over on his show, and we were talking about the western states of America seceding off, like California,
Yeah.
Arizona, um, Oregon, and all of this because they've come up with an interstate compact. And I'm like, my God, what is this? Are we literally talking about the breaking up of America into different districts and regions? And so I'm not sure if you want to comment on that. I kind of have a couple of notes right here to speak a little bit more on the breakdown of law and order and that kind of transition uh, from the western states seceding. Do you want me to speak more on
Oh
that?
yeah, carry on for sure. I'd love to. Here.
Feel free to interject with questions, man.
Absolutely.
I'm just I'm all over the place these days because there's so many different things happening. But
Understood.
earlier this week, I was talking about essentially the breakdown of law and order and how this creates the way for lawlessness and authoritarianism. I was alluding to it earlier with the protests, the riots, and eventually how they turn into, again, destabilizing event, borderline domestic terrorist events. I think that everybody has a First Amendment right. They should be able to go out there and express whatever grievances they have for the system. I've got a laundry list, but I'm not going to go burn down a building. I'm going to vote with my dollars and vote with my lifestyle. The problem is as I said before, the social contract has been broken. People don't respect people anymore. You got a bunch of Karens out there mass shaming people in broad daylight, acting like that's the thing to do. That's disrespectful. That's again a part of that lawlessness, and the only thing that subsides it is authoritarianism, detaining that person, disappearing this person, HR 6666, right? Contact tracing. And so to get back to this, extremists on both sides holding us hostage and the breakdown of law and order. I was talking about the western states, California, Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, potentially seceding in the event that Trump doesn't step down if Joe Biden somehow wins the nomination. This is a very tricky thing to talk about because what you're seeing is a two-tier political system. The same way we have like a two-tier justice system, right? There's certain people that have certain rights versus rich people who don't even have to worry about things. You're seeing a two-tiered political system. People that have to abide by either the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what we consider like America, or you have this new kind of globalist, new world order, technocratic, infiltrating type system that people are beginning to abide by. That's essentially what Joe Biden represents, and that's what Trump is trying to represent: nationalism versus globalism. This type of polarization, in the United Nations' own words, is not sustainable. It will result in what I call regionalism. This is why Trump signed the USMCA, the U.S. Mexico Canada Agreement, to turn us all into one essential big nation. This is, again, a part of the globalization plan. So when you're talking about the breakdown of law and order, well, whose laws are we following? Who's giving the orders? We don't know. Right now, Trump, like, again, Trump's got coronavirus. Is he going to abide by his own laws, or is he going to abide by the United Nations laws or the World Health Organization's laws? So let me just fly through like a couple quick examples of what will replace our form of law and order if things continue to degenerate. And feel free to stop me on any one of these if you want to go off on them, because they're all worth a separate show.
Will do.
You got street law, like beating up pedophiles for trying to steal children. Street law. You got militia law, some of what we saw during these protests, right? People going down the actual protests, not on either side of the aisle, just making sure that the event goes down. Martial law, something we are all unfortunately too familiar with. Militaristic rule. Sharia law, something that the Muslims use to help keep in force, help maintain the law. Noahide laws. This is something I'm going to be doing a future show on. It's not like Moses and the Ten Commandments. But I'll leave that there because I don't want to say anything else.
Okay.
Noahide laws, organized crime, the mafia, rewriting the Ten Commandments. This is something that we've seen in China specifically. And just to kind of make a quick detour with China, this is again looking at the globalism versus the nationalism and the regionalism, the technocratic order of things. China is one of the main anti-Christian forces in the world right now, where they're burning Bibles, they're destroying churches, they are taking people that they consider religious extremists to what they call thought transformation centers, which are really just re-education camps.
Yep.
We've covered this, unfortunately, time and time again. They've installed Communist Party officials inside of churches. They have, as I said before, rewritten the Ten Commandments and replaced them with President Xi Jinping quotes. They've also gone through and rewritten the Bible so that it's communistic approved. China is one of the main pushers out there destroying Christianity, and you don't hear a word of it.
It's because America. I don't mean to cut you off. I just with all the financial benefits that America gives to China, I feel like that's why you don't hear about these things. They're purposely suppressed. I mean, Disney owns half the media alone. You know what I mean? If you look at the corporations, the entities who are making billions upon billions every year off the Chinese audiences, off Chinese tickets, ticket sales, things like that. You know what I mean? It's no wonder you don't hear about these things.
Well, that's what you said right there. You said it right there. It's the bread and the circus. This is why LeBron James can't say anything.
Exactly. Yes.
China, bro.
Yep.
They no longer care about the American audience. They're beginning to export their product globally. And who's going to be the biggest consumer outside of America? China. They have to learn to cater to the Chinese audience. That's again, you nailed it on the head. That's why we're not hearing a word about it.
It's ridiculous. It's sickening because you don't hear anything about the concentration camps that Muslims are being put in either. You know what I mean? That barely gets any media coverage. And this is nothing new. This has been going on. You know what I mean? That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. Well, I talked about that just the other day, dude. Like, when China throws support behind Black Lives Matter, but still detains Uyghur Muslims like it ain't nothing, and murders people inside of their death camps, working people to death. These people don't care about Black Lives Matter.
No, yeah, not at all.
They care about slave labor. They care about destruction. They care about profiteering off of chaos. So no, you're precisely correct in your analysis, man. We're dealing with people that are trying to portray themselves as if they're global, as if they're humanitarians, but they're authoritarians.
Yep.
They're trying to subvert our rights and destroy our culture. You're 1,000% correct.
Speaking on China too, just one last point. I'm just getting everything off my chest against China right now. But you ever heard a peep about the Hong Kong protests ever since coronavirus started? And me personally, there's a lot of conspiracies and speculations on what caused the virus. I think it was a leaked virus that was accidentally released too early, but it was going to be used to stop the Hong Kong protests because they were gaining so much traction and media attention around the world. I've
Not
been saying
wrong,
this
bro.
since day
I was
one.
no, you're not wrong. I've definitely said the same thing. Uh, wouldn't it be easy for them to release a virus just to shut the streets down, shut down the social traffic? Like coronavirus gave China everything they needed. They got they now hold on to the world ball scale. Everybody listens to them. We don't listen to America anymore. This was such a sophisticated asking people whenever we drill down to it is, was this a bioweapon? There's no way that this was accidentally released. This was deliberate. This was deliberately released.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you've got UN, not Antonio Gutierrez, but Tedros Ghebreyesus of the World Health Organization actually running cover for China as this virus is leaking out of their country. It's such a sophisticated cover up, but at the same time it's not. It's like we're able to see how the World Health Organization played for China. We're trying to see how they're going to profiteer from this as well. I talked about that at the start of this pandemic. Xi Jinping said, "Hey guys, don't worry about this. This is going to be great for the Chinese economy." Fast forward a couple months, 6 or 7 months, here we are now, and they're offering the vaccine for free.
Mm-hmm.
So the very same people that infected the entire freaking world are beginning to offer the solution for free.
You know what's weird?
Dangerous.
Oops, sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off. There's like a little
No, no,
delay for
you're,
me.
no,
I'm
you're
not
fine.
sure why. What I was talking about this with my grandmother yesterday, for instance. A very weird. You know how when the corona first started, there was videos coming out of China of people just dropping dead in the middle of the street and just laying there for like just literally dropping dead. I'd love to see where that coronavirus went. You know what I mean? Because now it's all just 70, 80-year-old people suffering from it.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I feel like we're aware of things like the Great Wall of China, right? There's a reason why they let some of the footage come out from Hong Kong, and that's why they let some of these particularly shocking videos come out from China. People being locked up inside of their houses, like you said before, falling out in the middle of the street, people being taken out of their houses
Yep.
and thrown out of buses.
Boarding up windows and doors.
Yeah, and that's what I worry about. Was that political theater, or was this China's attempt to make us wolf, like make us jump, make us bite the apple of authoritarianism so that we're infected with the poison?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. Because I think they'll use any opportunity they can get to spread fear mongering in any way and to get
Yes.
people on their side. Not on their side, but not be against them. You know what I mean? Because they are the
That's,
biggest target in the world right now. They should be, at least. They should be held accountable.
that's the thing. Like I have I have a post saved on the phone from 2019, July of 2019, from the defense minister. I forget the general's name, but he basically talks about how they're pushing for hegemony. China is pushing for hegemony, and it may not seem like it right now. They're trying to adopt like the Hitlerian Nazi model. I know people don't want to think about this, but you've got to understand the sophistication of China. They have a very rich history, culturally. Like that's the thing is like I don't hate China. I
Neither
don't.
do I. I hate communism. That's what I'm against. I'm against all
Yeah,
communism in any form.
yeah. Well, even communism. I had to learn about basically like this year. I stumbled upon the works of like G. Edward Griffin, man, and I'm just having my mind blown like week after week. I had to find out that I'm not for communism. I don't like this type of stuff, and I'm not anti-China either. But I'm anti-communism. I'm anti-control. I'm anti-collectivist. I'm anti-statist, and that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what they are. And so when I'm looking at what's happening, how they're adopting this model, you got to look at what they're doing in Africa right now, where they're going in there and trying to build up a country economically. I know it doesn't seem like it, but that's another type of warfare. It's where you make yourself. It's where you make yourself more of an asset instead of like a liability. You can't go into a place invading it with guns and missiles and soldiers and stuff like that, but you can go invading it, putting people in debt. You can go invading it, developing roads. You can go in debt, putting people on pills. You can put people like. There's a lot of different ways to conduct different types of warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're looking at the ungodly amounts of money that China has been given over a couple of years, decades that they've been just mass producing things, they are now at world power. And so when I'm using Africa as an example of how they're going to, again, infect other parts of the world, they're not doing it in the traditional conquering way that we see. That's why they're using their economic power as their gun, instead of us just thinking, well, why can't we shoot them? Because they're smarter than that. The war that we're going up against is much more sophisticated than just having soldiers on the street, and that's why, to a degree, if you ask me, I think China's laughing at us with how we handle this coronavirus, with how we're fighting amongst ourselves, how we can't even have protests without them like being overrun by terrorists, and so it's a very very sophisticated adversary that we're talking about.
I agree. I think China's laughing in our faces right now, as and probably had half the world right now after what they've started. I agree.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was looking at the list. I just have like questions that I was gonna ask. Just do you want to move on? You want to keep covering this? It's up to you.
Bro, you're fine.
All
Please,
right.
you're fine. Go ahead.
What was the first event that you kind of began to realize was like not what the official story and narrative was? It made you start questioning things.
Um, I always question everything, but I started like the page in 2012, and I don't think I really started getting active until about 14 or so, because that's when 14 and 15 is whenever Jade Helm 15 was going down, and
What's that?
that's when, man, how do I describe Jade Helm 15? It is a training exercise where they basically ran around the entire country, or at least the southwest region, trying to have it mimic the Middle East, conducting, um, conducting like not tests, but drills where they're having armed conflict, where they're having soldiers come into contact with civilians. It's a very, very, oh gosh, oh my god, it's a very, very tricky thing. They were talking about fusion centers, FEMA camps, detaining
Okay.
people. It was a very, very sophisticated thing. It tripped me out. And that was whenever I first started getting involved with this. I was having people from all over, basically America, send me videos of trains moving, of military equipment, of tanks on the back of
Yeah, I've seen
cars.
those
Like it
sorts of
was,
videos.
it,
Yeah.
it was kind of unnerving because you're like, good lord, why are we seeing so much military equipment being moving in such a short amount of time, and you're not hearing a word of it on the mainstream media? And so prior to that, I was looking into the word, or I was following Obama because I don't trust any politicians, regardless of skin color or regardless of whatever they say. 2012 was whenever Obama signed the NDAA of 2012, which allowed for the indefinite detention of journalists. Last time I checked, that's kind of some of what we do here. So you're telling me that Obama could indefinitely detain me for no reason? I could be disappeared, and I'm supposed to keep rapping.
Yeah.
This is in that time period. I'm like looking over documents. People are like, yeah, Obama's in office. Like things are great. He's gonna change everything. You don't see what this man is doing.
Mm.
And so I'm having to have this moment right here, saying, listen, I can't I can't keep being a fool. Somebody's got to tell people about FEMA camps. Somebody's got to tell people about this military equipment. Somebody's got to tell people about disappearing people. Holy crap! What's going on with the Ferguson riots? Why are they rolling out tanks to deal with people? Why are they shooting people in the middle of the street? And so that kind of woke up this informational activist part of me, to where it's like, look, you got to get the information out, because if you don't figure out a way to massively distribute this information, more lives are going to be affected by this type of tyranny. And so Jade Helm 15 was probably one of the christening events to where it's like, look, it's no more games. They have the equipment, they're rolling it out there, they don't care about your rights, and you need to figure out how to wake people up and help them organize. And that was 2014. Fast forward to where we're at now, man, and it has been a wild ride ever since.
Agreed. What are your opinions on Obama? I know you talked on him for a second. What is your overview of him? What does your gut feeling say about him?
You know, again, you will never find a voting record of me. Uh, I never voted for a slave master, but I think Obama will. As a black man, I think it's important for people to have representation of people that look like them in positions of power. That's important. So as a black man, I feel like it's very important that that achievement took place. Whether or not he was installed, who he represents, the CIA, that's a different discussion.
Mm.
But as a black man, I feel like it's important that we see faces that look like me in positions of power, instead of just being a thug, instead of just being a fool, instead of just carrying a gun, instead of just smoking herb. We need to have a different image of the black man That's what I thought Obama was supposed to represent. Now, that's the surface level. You start paying attention, this man basically was in war all 8 years of his presidency and didn't get out. He lowered us to third world status, put us in debt.
Yep, more debt than any other president in U.S. history.
Yeah, and so I get the surface level superficial nonsense, but people don't see how we went from being like peak to crashing real hard. And so, oh, you don't like Obama because he's black? No, I don't like him because of his policies. No, I don't like him because of the debt that we're going to have to pay, and the wars that we're still in. And so, personally, don't respect it. Or I mean, I respect it as I respect the superficial, the surface level. But when you look at again his policies, his presidency, and more, you kind of have to take it with a little bit finer comb. And then you got Joe Biden, which is again another discussion entirely.
Yep.
So, to answer it simply, he was not our best president.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Is it harder or easier for you to do like you do live streams all the time and you do obviously your YouTube not podcast but what would you call them, your videos? Because I watch YouTube videos all the time. Your broadcasts, I should say broadcast.
It's called minicast, man.
All right, fair enough. Is it easier to do those alone, or is it better to have someone to shoot ideas back and forth with? Because for me, I know I need someone to shoot ideas with. I can't just sit there for 2 hours and talk by myself.
Bro, if you can't see it right now, but I have this right here. If we were to get into occultism, the occult criminal investigation documents and the satanic cult awareness guide.
Oh man.
And I've got like mounted documents over here.
I love it.
And that's why I set it up the way that I do, so that the first half I can kind of word vomit, get all my feelings out, and then the second half is whenever I pull guests on and I ask them questions and say, hey, what did you think about this week, or what we talked about last week, or what do you want me to get into next week? For me, it's hard. It was hard when I first started out, but because there's so many different things going on and there's so many different angles to cover these days that it's become easy. I'll give you an example, man. It's okay to, like, I could talk for a full day on the concept of different wars requiring a different type of soldier. And so that's not a topic, that's just a thought process. And so this is me just trying to give you like a couple examples as to how like my mind works when writing topics down or trying to get shows and stuff together. Come up with like a central theme. To understand the past, to understand the future, you have to understand the past. So maybe look at scripture, or maybe go find like a historical book, or go find something that happened in modern recent time that makes sense. And so as an individual, it was difficult to start, but now that it's flowing, it's very easy, because you don't want to stick to one thing all the time. I think that's what I appreciate about what we're able to cover. It's not particularly politics, it's kind of a grab bag of everything. And so whenever you narrow down, when you try to narrow down what you want to talk about, you only limit yourself. That's sometimes why you have to open up a little bit and be somewhat open-minded, so you can understand the different things that are coming in. And I tell people this all the time. I had alluded to it towards the start of the show, that I did not come into this being like a Christian or somebody that read the Bible and having this deep relationship with God that I have now. But again, after seeing so much overt evil, attending protests, having people try to hex me and do all kinds of strange
You say
stuff.
people trying to hex you? Like spells?
Yeah.
Really? You've had experience with that?
Not directly, indirectly at protests.
Okay.
Literally last month, last year, I've been dealing with the repercussions of a protest I went to. And at that protest, I saw a hexafascist. And so prior to that, I had been doing the Occult World Series. That's why I have these documents over here, where I was just documenting the Satanic Temple, the rise of Satanism, the difference between Luciferianism and Satanism, and just how we're all beginning to embrace it. And it tripped me out. And so to study this for 3 to 4 years, go to a protest, and then see somebody carrying like a sign saying hexafascist, and see people taking pictures of you, it was kind of a indirect confirmation of the escalation of Satanism. And so Not me directly. I'm not sure. You know, maybe they may have. I'm not sure. But I've definitely come into contact with these type of people.
That's scary. It's very scary.
It is, dude. I won't lie. I talked about it just like if I would have made it through more of these examples of the breakdown of law and order, I would have gotten to the Georgia Guidestones and Aleister Crowley's The Book of the Law, because isn't that what he says? That do as thou will shall be the whole of the law, the breakdown of law and order. And so I was going to try to talk about the spiritual principles of law and order and how we're no longer embodied by that type of spiritual order. We no longer want to understand God's will nor the earth's like patterns and anything else. We want to have a satanic inversion of things and live like we're 2020 YOLO all the time. This is very dangerous.
Mm.
And so earlier this week I talked about how Christianity is beginning to go underground as occultism is becoming mainstream. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. Did you want to touch on that? Because, bro, unfortunately, I'll go off on that.
No, I honestly feel like you do a much better job with your rants than I would. I feel like I don't want to disrupt you at all. I love hearing it, man.
Bro, please disrupt me.
Fair enough.
Please disrupt me.
Fair enough.
You know, to help encapsulate this for future audiences and future truth seekers like ourselves, go look into the Conspiratus, the Satanic Illuminati conspiracy documentary that was put out in 2009 by Zindrius. That is, again, Conspiratus by Zindrius.
Just writing that down.
2009. Oh, dude. Because the people that you'll see in there, from Ted Gunderson to Phil Schneider to Bill Cooper to Fritz Springmeier to all these amazing people that set the tone for us, that did all this work, man. Like, good Lord, we rest on the shoulders of giants when it comes to this type of work.
Indeed.
They lay it out for you in there.
Ted Gunderson's really the one who got me into all this, actually. I heard him speak about 9/11 in a YouTube video when I was in, like, middle school, maybe 7th or 8th grade. And I heard him speaking about 9/11 and how it was the biggest cover-up in the history of humanity. And that kind of led me to JFK, to Zionism, to all that, just to kind of start with that, to crisis actors. And you know how it is. Once you learn one thing, you keep hopping over to subject. And
Well, how about, if you don't mind me asking you, what are your, for future shows, what's your kind of thought process whenever you come up with shows, man? Because those are all great topics right there. Do you ever just jot them down and try to find like the connecting piece in between, or your thought process as far as coming up with shows?
For shows right now, I'm only done about 10, honestly. I'm really, like, just very new to it, honestly. Right now, what I'll do is I'll get some buddies, you know what I mean? I'll see if they want to talk about some subjects. I'll run them by them before we start. And then if we come to a standstill in the conversation, I'll refer back to one of those topics. Or if it's, like, really important, I'll start off with that topic. But yesterday, for instance, I did a podcast with 3 buddies, and we were talking about MK Ultra, Operation Midnight Climax, MK Delta, all the mind control, the Unabomber.
Write that down. I'm gonna write that down. MK Delta.
Yeah, it's a branch off of MK Ultra. There's MK Naomi as well. They're 2 branch offs of the same operation.
Okay, I know MK often. Speak about MK often, or speak about MK Delta, MK Naomi, because I know MK Naomi is the sex kitten programming, correct?
The sex kitten, you said?
The sex kitten programming, isn't that what MK Naomi is? It's a type of like sex worker or
that's Midnight Climax.
That's Midnight Climax.
Yeah,
okay.
when they would have prostitutes lace John Does with LSD to try to extract information from them. Because the CIA back in the day thought that they could get information and brainwash people with the use of LSD and MDMA, marijuana, with high levels of different drugs ingested into them. You ever heard of the Allen Memorial Institute in Canada?
I have not.
Oh, have you ever heard of the Fifth Estate on YouTube?
Yes.
Look into the Fifth Estate. They have a thing about MK Ultra, and one of them is about the Memorial Institution. And what they would do is they would give shock therapy along with ridiculous amounts of LSD in a drip and drip it through a patient's body and put them in a coma for weeks at a time, and subject them.
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I gotta interject real quick. When you were talking about the MK Naomi and the CIA running projects, that's where Obama came from. If people want a real rabbit hole to go down, look at Obama's rise to power and how he was installed. That's the world that Obama came from.
Yeah.
So when you're talking again about the other MK Ultra project, it's so crazy because I do want you to go back on that. I was talking on the podcast this week about this, what I call the psychedelic psyop. On Liberation Legion, our partner page, we have documented a strange rise of accepting psychedelics, hallucinogens, DMT, ayahuasca, LSD, and all this other stuff. How it's beginning to enter society. It's permeating in the society.
Mm-hmm.
It's making people dissociate. And I talked about Rick Strassman, the author of DMT, the Spirit
Spirit
Molecule,
molecule,
conducting
yep.
studies out here in the University of New Mexico, and how after a certain while, a lot of these people that did this DMT, they would come into contact with certain entities. And so now we're talking about psychonauts. Now we're talking about people who are doing drugs, trying to come into contact with stuff that's on the other side of like
Intentionally trying to, yeah.
Precisely. So you were saying, which program is that? It's not MK. It's not Midnight Climax.
No, that's MK. That's just classified as MK Ultra, but it happened from 53 to 73, and it was by a Dr. Ewan Hold on, I have his name right here. I got papers here for it.